So, writers, today we debate. Debating is valuable for many reasons. Debating allows you to make your voice heard. You live in a country where you have the right to disagree with what you see happening and to use your words to push for change. Desmond Tutu, a South African social rights activist, once said, "Don't raise your voice, improve your argument." A strong argument, not just a loud voice, is what will make people listen. Debating is a way to understand what others are saying and to then declare your position and to convey its benefits. And there is one more valuable reason to debate. Debating allows you to test your position. Debating shows you how strong your argument is, as well as ways it doesn't hold up. It's like taking your argument for a test drive or putting it in the scrimmage. You'll see how it plays. Today, you'll have a chance to take your argument into a scrimmage to figure out which parts of it work, which parts need strengthening, and which parts already address some of your opponent's points. After you participate in a debate, you'll revise and flash draft your position. But first, I want to give you a few tips on what makes for a strong debater so you can get started defending your position. Today, I want to remind you that when you are debating, you don't want to be wishy-washy. To be compelling, state a claim, give reasons to back up that claim, and give evidence to support each of your reasons. I want to share a chart of argument moves that pays off when one makes a strong argument. These aren't new to you, but take a minute to look at these argument moves, and then in a bit, you'll get to see them in action. The best way for you to learn the moves that matter most in argument is to see those moves in action. So I've invited two colleagues to have a little debate. Not about competitive sports, because that will be your work, but about whether it's okay for kids to read comics during independent reading time. I know that that's been a hotly contested issue. So I want you to take a piece of paper and as you watch the debate, record any argument moves that pay off. Be specific, recording details that you notice. Are you ready to spy?
I say that students should not read comics during reading workshop. I say this because comics lack sufficient volume, they are not complex enough to push students to make rich, deep interpretations, and they are taking away from students reading novels. My evidence to support my first point, that comics are not long enough, comes from my research. I counted the number of pages in some comics, and most of them don't have more than 30 pages, while novels are much longer. But also, comics have many fewer words on each page than novels, so they do not support volume. I can also support the point that comics are not complex enough. Comics don't tackle the same kinds of intense life issues that novels do. I mean, Archie trying to decide whether to date Betty or Veronica? Come on. It's a waste of time to read comics. I take the position that students should be able to read comics during reading workshop. I say this because comics are an important genre for students to know. They can be as complex as novels, and they might help more readers access the curriculum. One reason I think that students should be able to read comic books during reading workshop is because they are an important genre for students to know. For example, comics have their own section at many bookstores. Also, they may have multimedia elements, which give students experience in analyzing elements of non-print texts. In addition, comics are an art form, which make them important works for students to know. Despite what you said about comic books not being complex enough, students should read comic books because they actually can tackle themes that are just as intense as those in novels. For example, have you read Ultimate Comics, Spider-Man? It deals with the clash of good versus evil and with issues about identity, loss, belonging, and class. Complexity is about more than sentence and page length. And some students who may not love reading novels may love reading comics. Students should be able to read comics during reading workshop.
Okay, so what argument moves did you see each of them make? Go ahead and pause the video and take a second to review your notes and see what you noticed. Writers, I'm wondering if the things you noticed are all on the chart, tips for being a great debater, or if you also came up with new things for the chart. Did you notice that they both made their claim really obvious, like it was clearly their claim? So I'll add that to the chart. And did you also notice that our second debater, Miss Sullivan, tried to take apart what her opponent said? We should add this point to our chart as well. So, writers, it's time to put these moves into action to debate whether or not kids should be playing these competitive sports. You will need to decide if you want to argue that competitive sports are good for kids and they should play them a lot, or if competitive sports are not good for kids. Take about 15 minutes to prepare for the debate. And then you'll want to figure out your major points and ways to support those points. Think about how our debaters made their moves and which moves they made, and then plan how you can make those same moves. And you'll also want to figure out who you're going to debate with. If you have a friend that you might be able to do this with either in person or via Zoom, you can do that. Or you might want to debate with a parent or a sibling. After you figure out who you want to debate, you'll want to get them a heads up and make sure that they know which side they are going to be arguing so that they have a few minutes to think of their reasons. For today's assignment, you will be videotaping your argument. You do not have to videotape the full debate, meaning you don't have to videotape the person that you are arguing with or debating with, but you will have to videotape your part of the debate. So first you're going to find who you are going to debate and give them a heads up. And then you are going to need to spend about 15 minutes writing your argument. All right, writers, off you go.